Board. And we do have transcription if you want it. Okay, we're ready.
So in honor of our guest, our new city manager, we'll do roll call. And as Jeannie calls our names, if you don't mind introducing yourself and saying a little bit about who you are, and then we're going to let him do the same. So Jeannie, would you please do a roll call?
Sure, Craig Borba.
Hi, I'm Craig Borba. I was former assistant superintendent of schools here in Palm Springs, and I've been on the board now for 2 years. I'm also on the Mizell board and the Regional Access Project board.
Melissa Cronin couldn't make it. She has an emergency and couldn't be here. Juanita Garner.
Mute. My name is Juanita Garner. I work for Palm Springs Unified School District. I'm a bilingual paraprofessional there. I've been there for about 20 years, and my kids went to school here in Palm Springs in public school. And I've been on here for about, this is my first time, so I haven't even completed it quite a year yet. And I was on the building site selection committee.
Feels like you've been here forever.
Positively.
Yeah. David Kelly.
Hi, I was here online, but getting to you virtually through my phone. I am the current treasurer of the Board of Trustees for the library, and this is my first term, and soon will be my last term. I'm terming out because I'm going back to school starting next month, actually.
Oh my God.
The other things that I do, I'm president of Let's Kick Ass Palm Springs, which is a nonprofit that helps HIV positive and long-term survivors and witnesses to the plague years here in the Coachella Valley. And I'll be studying for an MPH in health services and policy at USC.
Wow.
And Ed McBride.
My name is Ed McBride. I am currently the president of the Board of Trustees. It really feels like I've been on here forever, but I think this is my second term, right, Jeannie? I'm halfway through my second term. In addition to that, I represent the trustees and I'm vice president of the Library Foundation. And in addition to that, other cultural things is that I am currently the secretary of the Palm Springs Rotary Club Noon group. So I'm very active as a Rotarian. So, and we'd love to have you come talk to us real soon too when your schedule gets clear. But I'm a librarian by education. I've worked in libraries way too long, but I've always had some affiliation with libraries in my 30 plus years. So nice to meet you.
Wonderful.
And then that's it for the trustees. So like I said, Lisa Brock is our operations manager at the library. And then we've got a guest, Robert Engel. And so please introduce yourself. Welcome.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you for having me today. So my name is Justin Clifton. I'm very happy to be here in Palm Springs. I come by way most recently of Sedona, Arizona, where I served that community in the same capacity for about 6 years. And then I also managed 2 communities in Colorado prior to that. So I love public service. I love community building. Libraries are such a foundational cornerstone of that effort. Now, my wife and I also have 2 young children, ages 5 and 3. So the library is a very favorite place of ours. We were fortunate in Sedona to live within walking distance of our local library, and we were there for story time and all of these things. Of course, the pandemic had a small interruption to that, but needless to say, we really value that service. I've worked closely in my capacity with cities. Interestingly, the 3 communities that I've managed all had different governing structures for libraries, none of which were internally operated. All of them were special district or nonprofit or some other arrangement, but in all cases, the integration with the city was strong. There was almost always some kind of financial relationship. If not, there was certainly extensive collaboration on programs and things like that. So I've worked closely with friends groups, foundations, advisory boards, and the like in making libraries strong interesting times we're in right now, not only because of the pandemic, but of course, the macro trends across the country with libraries doing some different things and adding some different services and kind of evolving beyond the model that was predominant for so long of primarily being just a book-centered place. So I really look forward to learning more about our library. There was a quick sidebar conversation about meetings and when they might go live. I'm aware that some of the orders pertaining to closed facilities and the like come from my office and come from me. So I don't want to get out in front of things too quickly. I want to have some conversations with council and from team members and really get a sense for where people are at. But since the state and federal guidelines have started to move to some more permissive activities, I think it's at least time to review our orders and protocols and see if we're ready to do some of the same. So again, I don't want to make any promises on my third day to exactly what that will look like, but I understand how valuable the services are to the community. And while we want to maintain safety in all cases, we also want to return to delivering those services that are so near and dear to people's hearts and really necessary for that wonderful community that we're talking about. So I'm available anytime. If you need anything from me, I say anytime. Of course, I keep plenty busy. But the point is, if you do need something from me, or if any of you in your capacity supporting the library or in capacity as citizens and knowledgeable people in Palm Springs feel that I should know something or see something or be aware, please reach out and let me know. I'm here to serve because I love service. I love community. So I'm anxious to get out there, listen and learn and help where I can. So thank you again for having me. I look forward to a long time of rich partnership and collaboration.
Justin, if I could just say that Jeannie and her team have worked so hard through this pandemic to keep our library alive and have done an outstanding job. And so I think you will find that we're all very proud. We're a very passionate community around the library. You'll hear that. We learned that recently with focus groups and talking to the community. So you will hear from us because the citizens really demand a world-class library, and we've got to work hard to deliver that. So it's a great community to live in. I'm very proud to live here, and I think all of us are. In this current group of trustees, we're going to miss Trustee Kelly because he's been one of our most passionate about our money and taking care of our money. But everyone on here is here because they love libraries and they love this community. So it's a good group, and I think that you'll find that as you work with us going forward.
Thank you. I really look forward to it. And please let me know how I can help.
You will. You'll hear from us for sure soon.
Can't wait. And
You
if you don't mind,
if you need us, you call on us too. If something comes
Okay.
up, you know where we are for sure.
you bet. And I will hang back and observe for a little while. I'll have to jump off before long, but I'd love to just see what kind of work you guys are doing. So
You understand. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, everyone. Let's call this meeting to order of the Palm Springs Public Library Board of Trustees. It's Wednesday, April the 7th, and I show the time being 5:44. And Jeannie, can you talk to us about the acceptance of agenda, please?
Yes, the agenda was posted on or before March 31st.
I move that we accept the agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Craig Borba,
Yes.
Juanita Garner,
Yes.
David Kelly,
Yes.
Ed McBride.
Yes. So our agenda is approved and accepted. Now's our time for public comments. Do we have anyone that would like to make public comments?
We do have one guest on the meeting. We have no public comments that were emailed or called. So, Mr. Engel, did you want to say anything? Maybe not. I know he says he's here as an observer, so.
Wonderful. Welcome, Mr. Engel. We're glad you're here. We always glad when someone from the public does show up and participates. Item next is our consent agenda. May I have a motion to accept the consent agenda, which includes our meeting minutes from our last meeting and the library statistic package?
I'll move.
a second, please? Raise your hand, Juanita. I see you. Juanita seconds. Roll call, please. Jeannie.
Craig Borba,
Yes.
Melissa Cronin's not here. Juanita Garner,
Yes.
David Kelly,
Yes.
Ed McBride.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving right along into our administrative reports. Jeannie, are you going to represent the Friends?
It looks like it. The Friends of the Library are working on their annual meeting. And this year it is happening virtually. And it's going to happen on April 25th. Now, don't worry about the Oscars because it will be finished before the Oscars start. The event starts at 2 o'clock and you can register for the event on their website, which is www.friendsofthepalmspringslibrary.org. And the event is completely free. But the nice thing about this is that it's featuring one of our local best-selling authors, Wade Rouse. And he writes memoirs under Wade Rouse, but he writes fiction under his pen name, Viola Shipman. And that's named in honor of his grandmother. And he's a great writer. He's got a lot of books. So we're going to have bestselling author Wade Rouse there. It's going to be on Zoom. And again, you register for free. And it'll be Sunday, April 25th at 2 o'clock. Another thing about the Friends of the Library is that they completed their very first online auction. And it was a huge success. They met their goal. And they raised $5,000.
Wow.
So that was a great goal. All the baskets sold, all the artwork, everything sold. And there was one interesting story. Someone came to pick up their item and they said, oh, how did it go? And they said, well, we were just a couple $100 short of our goal. And the person gave $200 cash.
Wonderful.
Wow.
That was really neat. So they made their goal. And thank you to all the people who donated baskets. And thank you to everyone who sponsored different activities. We got some summer reading sponsorships and all the baskets sold. So that was a lot of fun. There was a bidding war for a couple of them. And then someone just said, I've got to buy it now because I don't want to lose this basket. So.
Jeannie, can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you have the scroll going on right now? Because I don't see it. And usually whenever I've used a Zoom meeting that has that scroll going, I actually see it being typed along as we're doing it.
Oh.
So I'm not too sure whether or not you've activated it.
I apologize. Let me enable that.
There it is.
There you go. Sorry about that. I thought it was I thought you turned it on yourself, but I guess so I apologize. So there we go. So now we're on caption. So that really is the Friends report. They've got, I should also say that they have these mystery bags for sale for $5 at the front door. So you can get a bag of mystery items for $5. They're books or DVDs, but they've got those for sale to raise money and that, raising a little money here and there. So that's the Friends report.
Do you know when the next book sale is going to be?
No.
It's set yet, then.
No, we're just waiting to reopen. We've got the ongoing book sale area set up and ready to go, but for an actual physical book sale, nobody feels comfortable right now being together and then being in a crowd with people wanting to buy books. So they can't plan anything right now.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Mm-hmm.
I had hoped that Mr. Sidley would be here for the Library Foundation, so let me do my best because there's actually some very good news out of the foundation since we last met. But first of all, I think that the foundation reported that they had invested some money into a software package to get organized around their donor database, and they've actually installed that and they're going through training right now on how to use that product and how to use it to raise money, and everything has gone really great. I helped with a little bit of the data conversion, and we had a lot of support from our foundation board members sharing their personal list of friends from all over the community. So they're reaching close to 1,000 people in their list of possible donors. And at the end of the year, they did an end of year, just pull it together and ask, and were able to raise some money off of that. The good news is that a couple of months ago, they were notified that they had been mentioned in a bequest. And of course, those things happen a lot, as Jeannie can tell you, and sometimes they can be fabulous surprises, and sometimes they're just surprises, right? So the estate formally announced to the foundation, I think about 2 weeks ago, that the bequest was split between the foundation and 2 other organizations. And so they'll be receiving $103,000 or $110,000 from that bequest, which was just amazing.
Yeah.
So they're very happy about that. And we've tried to do our research to find out who this gentleman was, in terms of not to pry, but to at least maybe send a thank you to the family. And we haven't been able to find it. We think that it's somebody, he just loved the library. He needs to come into the library and use it. That's about what we can put together, and was quite generous in his estate. So the foundation and the library will benefit a lot from that. So that was really good news. And that's probably all I really had. Jenny, can you think of anything? I mean, have you talked to David, or is there anything else from you on the foundation? Or Craig, maybe you know something, I don't know.
I wasn't at the last meeting.
Yeah. There's a meeting this week. It's tomorrow, actually, and there was no meeting last month. So you guys are hearing it before most of the board would hear about the bequest. So.
And that's great news about that amount of money. And I think it was 106,000.
Yeah, somewhere in there. I'm sorry.
But it was
We're
great.
all flabbergasted. So, anything over $5 was really, wow. I can't believe that. It's kind of great. So anyway. Okay, that's all I had. Library staff, I guess. Jeannie, you're next.
Okay, so we've been continuing with our Library A Go-Go pickup service. And during the month of March, we had 1,525 pickup appointments. So very proud of the work that my staff's doing with that. We do encourage you to check out our online programs for the month of April. Be sure to sign up for our monthly newsletter. Story times are on Facebook and the YouTube channel on Thursdays at 10. Our teen live events continue on Tuesdays at 4 on Instagram Live. Go see what Sean's up to. He's doing all kinds of fun, interesting things live. This month's youth activity for April is Sand Art. It's our Craft Along program. The video premieres on Facebook and YouTube on April 13th, and we do have kits available while supplies last. The Friends of the Palm Springs Library are sponsoring all of our program supplies right now for these activities. So thank you to the Friends. Our teen activity, Teens to Go, or Teen to Go, is our Poetry Month to Go kits. And again, pick up the craft supplies, the kits while supplies last. They include enough supplies to make poetry magnets and newspaper blackout art. For our adult program this month, we are getting Oscar ready, and our movie librarian, Scott Began, is going to talk about his top 10 movies of the year. And this premieres April 19th at 2 o'clock on Facebook and YouTube. Just check out our events calendar on our website for more information. But this one, to celebrate the Oscars and our new Blu-ray collection, he's going to run down his top 10, show you where and how to watch the major contenders, and then tell you what titles are at the Palm Springs Public Library on DVD and Blu-ray. For children ages 4 to 12, we're doing the In-N-Out Burger cover-to-cover reading program. That ends on April 17th. And for every 5 books that a child reads, the child earns a free burger certificate, either a free hamburger or cheeseburger. And the children can earn up to 3 free burgers during this program. Parents should register their children online through our Beanstack app. And again, that's on our website, pslibrary.org. And then finally, April 30th is El Dia de los Niños, El Dia de los Libros, Children's Day, Book Day. And it's a celebration of children and families and reading. And the author Pat Mora founded this celebration, and I got to meet her several years ago when we had a big Dia celebration in Cathedral City. And we are going to do a special story time on April 30th. And so our children's librarian, Nancy Valdivia, is going to read Book Fiesta in English and Spanish, and we're going to post that on Facebook and YouTube. And that will be to commemorate the 25th anniversary of Dia. So every story matters and every child counts. And that is my report.
Any questions for Jeannie or anyone else?
No.
The only questions I could think of, I guess, we already heard what was going to happen in terms of the reopening of the library. We just don't know. But I would imagine because of the fact that the library was reopened for a period of time not too long ago, you're probably in pretty good shape to do it pretty quickly if you had to. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, we make sure that we're ready so that when we get the green light, it's an easy process to unlock the door and let the people in.
And is there any new word about whether or not the city is becoming more amenable now that it seems like the scare of the financial crisis seems to be over, that they're actually revisiting budgeting and whether or not that projects that we had put aside, like the Fry building, might actually come back to life?
One thing that I did get information about was that we're planning for a flat budget for next year. So we'll probably have one more year of similar conditions that we had this year. The city manager just stepped off, so I'm not sure, he just got here, and we'll see. But it has been great that the city has had better financial situation than they thought. But we still don't know. We're still in the budgeting cycle right now, so we're still working on that. I did put in a request for what I needed, and then we'll see. We'll see what we get. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more than we got last year this current year.
Yeah, and lastly, the status of the machine that is sorting out the books. What's going on with that?
Well, we got the contract. Everything's order. We've got the order done. The situation with that is COVID and travel doesn't cooperate right now. So the company is in Germany, and I don't know that they're going to be able to get us the installers to come out and work on their equipment until later in the year. But we'll be okay. We've been working just fine. Even when we were open, we've got 2 self-checks running, and that's perfect anyway, to have the 2 self-check stations. They're socially distanced. There's plenty of room between the 2. And there's not a lot of backlog when we do have, when we even had a full house here. We didn't have a line of people checking out. So we'll be fine, but we've got the order in place and things are secured. So that's great. The funding's set aside for that project. And in fact, we've put down a deposit on our equipment.
Great, thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you. Moving on to the treasurer report. Mr. Treasurer.
Okay, great, thank you. Jeannie, if you could put up page 9 of the packet. Okay, so what you see here at the top in the cash row, we have a cash balance of $1,820,392.34, which is nominally off from what it was last month. There was no interest income credited. The only thing I see is a debit that's on page 11 that probably requires Jeannie's explanation. the Friends of the Library, that
Yes.
dubious account.
Well, they are working to take the Friends of the Library account out of your line item. And they actually made a math error. So one more month of transactions, and then that will actually show up as 0, completely 0, and it will go away from your balance. But that's what they're doing, is they're working to take that Friends of the Library line item out of your accounting and moving it to my accounting.
That will make things easier for us in the future, I am sure. So
Yeah, completely easier, and your money won't fluctuate so much because it won't have the Friends money rolling in and out. Yeah.
This may be my last treasurer's report. I may not be here for the May or the June meeting, depending on what my class schedule is. My classes actually start at 5 and 6 p.m. in the evening, and the only thing I don't have right now is my class schedule for what day those meetings will happen. And I know that on the agenda, there's going to be a discussion about the May meeting, but probably sometime between now and that time, I'll know whether or not I can make the May or the June meeting. So I'll keep you guys posted.
Thank you. Also, I mean, from where we started with this to where we are now, how are you feeling? I mean, do you feel like this report has gotten in much better shape? You've worked so hard. How do you feel looking back?
I would say that probably going forward, the challenge, I think we've gotten to a point where at least we can actually figure out what's cash in and cash out, which is obviously very important. And I think if you go to like page 10, I think some of the mystery has been taken out of these interest payments in terms of trying to figure out what is an interest credit mean, and what does it mean when they take back like $8,000 from us, and what that means about following up about, in the final reconciliation at the end of the year in terms of whether or not we got the correct interest amounts. So those two things I think have substantially got answered. I think the last thing that might be a challenge going forward is probably, I'm trying to see which page that might be on. Well, I guess on page 11, that column that says budget, that has line number 5004, which says future library projects, has always been a kind of a hodgepodge number to me. But it doesn't seem to affect anything in terms of cash balances, or hasn't affected anything in terms of what we can do on a day-to-day basis. But I suppose if you ever went to have a project to further clean up these statements, I'd probably work on this page.
I agree on that one. The future library projects account should happen is that when we end our year and close our year, all the closed projects, the money goes back in, and you get your amount, and then that entire amount goes to the future library projects account, I think, and then gets divvied out to the new projects. But it kind of it hasn't happened in a while. And in fact, if you look at the total budget on this page, it's 1.9 million, but our cash is only 1.8 million. So there's some discrepancies that those haven't been cleared up over the years. But this is just a budget. It's not true, like you said, it's
cash in and cash out.
Yeah, it doesn't affect anything. The cash account is what affects everything.
Yeah, the only thing that's kind of useful about this list here is that when we've actually allocated money for the Wellwood patio, and then money gets debited for the Wellwood patio, that shows up here on this page. So does the Cropitzer Trust donations. the library campaign as well. So,
But as we had agreed some time ago, this board, when things reach zero, then they drop off the next year, right? Jeannie, is there a policy that these carry on? I know that we said that whatever money left goes back into the future library projects, but is there a policy that it carries for another year, or does it go away?
We control what shows up here as far as projects. So when like, as an example, a PR library campaign, let's say that we're not going to do that again next year. I would just tell them, please close that account. And then they would close that, and then it would erase from your screen and your list. So yeah, like you don't see the sunshade on here. You don't see the LED sign,
Right.
those different projects that we did. Even the Wellwood building renovation was on here for a while.
And the Wellwood patio should be going away, right? I mean, we've spent all our
Yeah.
money.
They're waiting, and this is a month old. I don't know what the current number looks like, but that $12,000 is they're waiting for final, everything to be finally recorded and done and the project to be completed before they release the final payment to the contractor.
And I assume that project's done?
Yes, but the contractor has obligations at the end to close the project and do their things, all the things that they do.
I'm dying to see it.
Oh, it's cute.
Can't wait.
It's open. You could go see it.
Can?
The
Good.
gate gets opened every day, so you could see it.
So next time I'm down there, I'll stick my nose in there and look at it.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Good. Very good. Thank you, Trustee Kelly. Are there any questions about the trustees report or the treasurer's report, excuse me? Okay. Somehow, I hope it's not your last, but thank you for all the work you've done. If it is, just so you know, we really do appreciate it. Future boards will thank you for all the work you did for it. So thank you.
I need to find out what Craig Borb is not on here.
There you go.
No.
He's just down the hall from you?
He's just across the way. Hold on.
get your
One
bag.
minute.
Looks like Justin Clifton put something in the chat saying, thanks again for welcoming me. I look forward to working with you. I have to jump off now.
Yeah.
Craig's computer is frozen, so we're working on it.
Thank you. Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
So Trustee Kelly, are you excited about this new endeavor starting so soon? I mean, it just seems like yesterday you told us about it. So is it?
Oh, time flies, right?
I know.
I know, and it's a fast track program, so I'm supposed to do about 2 years worth of work in 1 year. So,
God.
but I'm up to the task. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. We start off with a class in epidemiology and one about the history of the healthcare system in America. So I think both are really great topics to start off with.
Especially right now. I mean, you know, that would be so interesting. I mean, it's going to probably be a lot to learn, but so interesting right now with our history. Now, are you remote class, or will you have to be in person? Will you have to go somewhere?
Well, that's a funny thing because, you know, I got interested in an MPH degree years ago, But it was when I started hearing about all these students going to school online that I thought, I wonder if there's an MPH program that's reputable that has an online program. And USC had had one that was operating for over a decade. So it's not like they just put it up there because of COVID. They've been doing it. So it's like, oh, well, that sounds like an option. And I started looking into it. And the more I learned about it, the more I wanted to do it. So
it's a remote program all along. So you'll be doing
yeah.
what we're doing right now. It'll be Zoom.
Yep, soon.
Yeah.
More soon. And it's kind of high tech in a way too, because they've got their own TV studio, and they've made some of these presentations that we have to watch, very intricate. And like there was this global nutrition thing where the background behind the professor was Costa Rica, and you could see forests with bananas and everything like that. And I was just like, okay, we're gonna win an Academy Award here or something for cinematography.
Wow. Well, it is USC, right? You would expect that.
That's true. I forgot about that.
That, right?
They know something about film.
They sure do. Dr. Barber, are you back? All right. We missed you.
We can't hear a word you're saying because you're mute, but thank you.
How am I now?
Okay,
You're good.
you're good.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeannie.
All right, we missed you. Okay, so we're now on to our discussion items, and you all may recall that we have a memo before us from Treasurer Kelly talking about our overall investment policy. And when he first introduced that, we decided at that time to kind of break it up and have discussions about it over the coming months, assuming we had time because he was going to be here with us. Now I don't know what we should do here. I mean, I don't want to cram all the work you've done into 30 minutes, but I'm going to look to you. What is your recommendation on where we are and what you think we should do and pick it up from here?
Well, the presentation that I have for you today is really to get you started on, really thinking about your role as Board of Trustees members, because I don't think, it's certainly not in my time that I've been here, there hasn't been a real presentation about, for one thing, fiduciary responsibility, or what we should expect as trustees to do, and think about. So this is a very general presentation. It talks about some strategies that board members should consider. You may want to continue to do this kind of work in terms of searching out, I went on to YouTube and found a couple of introductory videos that didn't seem to be too taxing for people who aren't finance geeks, but really can kind of give you a little flavor. So I think the overall discussion about what to do with the trust fund, I think this will give you a little bit of background as to why you might want to ask more questions about it. And I think for anybody, like for example, the people who are on the foundation, if they're not considering some of these issues, I think they probably should.
They are.
So I have links to both presentations. I don't know if Jeannie, do you want to share the screen with me? I could run them here, or do you want to run them yourself? And they're very brief. I think the first one's like 3 minutes and the second one's about 5 minutes.
Does the board want to watch the videos at this time, or did you want to review them?
You know what? I watched the videos and they're very short. I think it'd be good to show them just one more time. But remember to click off, because otherwise I got stuck on here for an hour and a half looking at all the other related videos, which were very informative, but I didn't plan on doing that.
You can always unplug your computer.
Oh, no, they came right on and said, oh, and did you think about this? And I said, no, I didn't even think about that. So, but thank you, David, for sharing. I appreciate that.
Okay, so let me, I have to share, hopefully the sound will come through, because that's a trick. You have to set that too. Okay, so I'm going to go to this screen. No, forgive me if the sound doesn't come through. I might have to, let me, hold on. The sharing options. Okay, you tell me if it's playing through. Are you able to hear music?
Nope.
No, okay. One moment. I didn't know we were gonna do this, so let me,
Or you could share. I have it keyed up already.
no, I have to change just the sound settings on my main settings. Just a second.
Item 2 on your list there that you put down, David, is probably something we really need to explore. Find out how much power we do have in these type of moving the trust money.
Well, after the video plays, I'll go and address each one of these things really quickly, at least to give you my perspective on them.
Thank you.
Just one moment.
I think I've told you before that other foundations and projects I'm on have all moved their endowment money to other locations within the last 3 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Is there an underlying common reason?
They wanted to get a better return.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The RAP Foundation moved their money to Wells Fargo.
Mm-hmm.
The Mizell Center did a change. They have their money with the Community Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did is they adjusted how the money was to be invested.
Yeah.
So they took all the money out of international and put it into national. The Mizell board has a finance committee made up of board members and non-board members. And so it's a pretty good group.
The Rotary Foundation had a really amazing year, and they're looking at the very same thing, what to do next.
Let me try it now. Do you hear music? Did you hear her?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, then I'll start. Okay. Good, then that's working.
Do you think you can move the volume up at the bottom of the thing there? The little volume key?
It's
I can't hear anything there.
It's not working.
you don't hear her?
Nope.
No.
You know, it's not just the settings that you have there for Zoom, but at the bottom of the screen there's a volume key for that on YouTube. So if you actually adjust the YouTube volume at the bottom of the screen, that might help. Oh, it's all the way up.
I think I could let you take control and maybe you try it, but you want to try that?
Sure. Right now, it says I'm the host disabled participant screen sharing. So I think if you went into the participants and made me a co-host, then I could actually do this.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Okay, see it. And then I need to allow participants to start video. And okay, I try it now.
Can you hear it?
No.
Well, the
Yes.
first tip is really about understanding your charity's finances and remembering that it's not about individual decision making. The board of trustees as a whole have a collective responsibility to come to decisions about their investments. And that's a reminder really that it's not just about the finance committee. The finance committee might make recommendations, but it's then about the board of trustees really coming to that collective view. So one of the most important things to do when investing for a charity is actually look to see what you can invest in. Where do you look for this? Well, you look at your governing document. If there's anything you can or can't invest in, or anything specifically that you should or shouldn't be doing, it may well be stated within this document. What else you can and can't invest in might come down to the legal form of the charity. So depending on whether you are a charitable trust or a scheme, the legislation behind that may also determine what you can and can't invest in. Trustees need to make sure that any investment decisions they make must be in the best interest of the charity. As such, it's a good idea to record the pros and cons of any investment decision that might significantly impact upon the charity. Well, this tip is all about thinking about your reputation as an asset and an asset to be protected and preserved. And that, in an investment context, means taking time to think about what role ethical investing might play in terms of your charity's reputation and protecting that. So if you have taken the decision to invest as a charity, the next step might be to decide whether or not you need any advice or help in making those investment decisions. And whether you need help or not might depend on the makeup of your charity board, whether you do have any trustees with specific knowledge, bearing in mind it is an equal duty and responsibility of all trustees. If you do need that advice, then where do you go to for it? And there are independent financial advisors, there are banks, there are investment firms that specialise in providing advice to charities. So there is lots of advice out there. It's just making sure you go to the right places, that advice is proportionate and is cost effective given what you're trying to do. It's a very good practice for charities to actually record any investment decisions they make, to note them down and to remember to include them in the annual report and accounts. Thinking about your charity's purposes and how to connect that with your investments, I think this is a sign of how things have moved on. At one stage, charities may have thought about their investments really in isolation from what the charity really was there to do in terms of its mission and purpose. But things now, there's a possibility of connecting much more closely the charity's finances and its investments and delivery of what it's really trying to do, what its aims are. So tip number 7 really is all about just thinking about your purposes in the context of your investments. So traditionally, when a charity invests, and it has all been about financial returns, how much financial return you can generate for the risk that you're taking. Today, many more charities are talking about social returns, environmental returns, other types of returns that can be generated. It may be in deciding to invest that you're looking for a range of returns. So yes, you're looking for that financial return, but you're also looking for a return perhaps that will help to further the purposes of the charity, or indeed a social or environmental return. Regardless of what type of return you're looking for, the purpose of investing ultimately has to be to advance your charitable purposes. All
although trustees may have the powers to delegate investment decisions to an investment manager, what you must never forget is that ultimately it is the trustee's responsibility to make investment decisions.
It's important for charity trustees to stay up to date as well, and there's lots of ways to do this. There's events, free training, free seminars, in particular every November during Trustees Week when various things are held around Scotland. But of course with the internet there's lots available online to be able to just at the click of a button stay up to date with whether it's blogs or new updates. For example, Oscar's own blog site as a source of helping you as a trustee keep on top of what's happening.
So that's it. And I'm gonna stop it and go back. So I'm gonna stop the share here. So on page 18 of the packet, I had in here just in reference to my memo, January 25th, 2021, where it said that the Library Trust Fund should have its own charter with a statement of purpose, objectives, and investment guidelines. The charter should state the type of library projects it will consider funding and which need special approval, if any. And so in presenting this, I think they're probably going forward, there should be maybe a goal, I think, of, or a series of goals of, to actually set some policy, or at least have the discussion towards setting a policy of what it is that the inflows and the outflows. So the inflows being the existing money and how it's supposed to be invested, which for right now means that it's been held by the city and it's invested very conservatively. The outflows to consider would be to think about the short-term funding needs of the library that we typically finance, like the Pritzker Fund or some of the usual things that we do, as well as to consider the long-term purposes of whatever expenditures we want to do, because I don't think to date we've ever really put those to paper. And I think it would be useful to do that, because when we have issues of whether or not we're going to pay for certain items like capital improvements to the library, we've kind of done that on a kind of ad hoc basis and had a discussion as opposed to referring to a policy. And it would be useful, I think, for people to actually, outside of this Board of Trustees, to actually understand what our policies are prior to making a request of the library trustees to finance something. Going through the list that you see there, understanding your finances, including investments. I mean, that's pretty basic, right? But it's really about being actively involved. Check your investment powers. This goes back to the idea of coming up with kind of an actual statement of what our powers are. What is it that that our investment goals are? What are we going to do in terms of how we're going to use the funds? Know your charity trustee duties. I mean, we have it in our charter what our duties are. I think you can go back to the January 25th, 21 memo that showed what the city considers the duties of the library Board of Trustees. That's pretty simple. But we haven't really set our goals or our duties on a kind of fiduciary basis for this endowment. Get help and advice if you need it. Well, that's to date, we've kind of relied on our own knowledge and advice to maybe sometimes going to the city treasurer. But there are, as a video noted, there's a lot of investment advice that's available outside of the city. Think about your charity's purposes. Well, that goes again back to the idea of what are we actually spending the money on. So again, a statement would actually be useful in that regards. Thinking about the range of investments. Again, some of the things, to date, really all we've been doing is really going for a risk-free, very liquid type of investment. Does the entire portfolio have to be virtually risk-free? Does the entire portfolio have to be very liquid, meaning that we can actually convert it to cash very quickly? That has impact on the return that you get in the portfolio or in the trust. Understand your responsibilities. Again, that probably should be delineated in a statement of some sort. And then keeping up to speed, I think just actually engaging in this conversation and actually having some thoughts about what it is that we really ought to be doing as trustees, I think is really a first step in that regard. If you turn the page to page 19, it says, what is an investment policy statement? And I guess the last one was a 5-minute video. This one is a 3-minute video. So if Jeannie could share the screen once more and I can do that again, that would be great.
I think you can go take over now.
An investment policy statement is a document drafted to assist the plan sponsor in satisfying his or her fiduciary responsibility with respect to the selection of investment options. It's both a blueprint and a report card, as it helps in effectively supervising, monitoring, and evaluating the investment of plan assets. So what are some questions that must be answered when putting together an investment policy statement? What is the purpose of an investment policy statement? Stating in a written document the committee's attitudes, expectations, objectives, and guidelines in the investment of all plan assets. Stating the responsibilities of the committee, the investment managers, the investment consultant, and the record keepers, which will also encourage effective communication. Establishing the number and characteristics of offered investment options. Establishing procedures for selection, monitoring, and if appropriate, replacing investment options. Another purpose of the investment policy statement is to provide performance and risk characteristics for each asset class, represented by various investment options. Another question that must be answered when putting together an investment policy statement is, what are the goals of the plan? Next are the duties and responsibilities. What roles and responsibilities do each of the following groups have in helping the plan meet its goals and IPS criteria? Retirement Plan Committee, Investment Advisor, Investment Managers, Custodian, and the Record Keeper and Administrator. Another important question are the asset class guidelines. What broad asset classes should be used in the plan to meet the risk tolerance preferences of individual plan participants? Stable value and/or money market funds, bond funds, hybrid, equity funds, specialty funds, self-directed brokerage accounts, company stock, or other individual securities. Next are the monitoring and control procedures. How often should the investment committee meet? What monitoring criteria will be used to monitor an investment manager's performance? When will funds be replaced if warranted?
Okay. So going back to page 19, I kind of wrote out a lot of what they were actually saying there. But this is going back to having this written document, which they are calling here an investment policy statement. It could be called anything you really want to call it, but it could be called like an library trust fund endowment policy statement. But basically, it's really saying as it says here in the first one, one of the things is the purpose, which is attitudes, expectations, objectives, and guidelines. And then it goes through some of these guidelines, like establishing the number and characteristics of investment options, which is kind of delineated a little further down there, establishing procedures for the selection, monitoring, and replacement of investment options, which is so important. I mean, we were just talking off the line about one charity who decided to move their money out of an international fund and put it into a domestic fund. That might be actually something where you need to have a procedure for that replacement, which probably means a meeting of an investment committee, or and probably what would prompt that would be the idea that we put in maybe performance guidelines in place, and there might be an investment manager or some person in the trustees who's concerned that an international fund is probably not going, it's going to be a dead weight maybe on our return for the year. So that in order to actually meet our investment goals, we need to move out of that particular international fund. The third item there was providing performance and risk characteristics for each asset class presented by various investment options. We'll go into that a little further down the line in number 4. So investment options, what are the goals of the plan, right? So the goals of the plan, again, are really based on what is it? It could be in a couple of different things. I mean, it could be for some people or some organizations, being invested in socially responsible stocks or companies is an important investment goal, which might be even in addition to their risk characteristics or what expected rate of return they want to get. So these are all things to consider in the goals of the plan. Number 3, duties and responsibilities. This really seems to be driven more about, well, who is really handling this? So, and even in the trustees here, I think in the first video, they said really ultimate authorities with the entire board of trustees. And at some point they might delegate some of these duties. So there might be a committee that's formed. There certainly might be an investment advisor. Certainly if it goes outside of the city, usually a bank or an investment bank would actually provide somebody who is your advisor. There would be investment managers who work for that or work with that advisor. There's a custodian. A custodian is the organization or people that actually hold the assets. And they're an important group of people because you need to know that they're responsible and can move the assets responsibly and with the authorities that the Board of Trustees give it. A record keeper, administrator, so important. You want to make sure that the statements that you're receiving are trustworthy and that they're presentable and that they're understandable. Number 4, asset class guidelines. What broad asset classes should be used to meet the risk tolerance preferences of the plan? Well, this goes back to the guidelines in number 1.3, which was talking about risk characteristics. So if you're looking at this list here that's going from A to G, this is really kind of going from what we would consider less risky investments to more risky investments. But also you could characterize it as being going from low return investments to higher return investments, or at least potentially higher return investments. Stable value and or money market funds basically is like cash. Bond funds, if it's invested in high grade bonds, typically bond funds are low risk and very low return. Hybrid funds, that just means it has a mix of different things. It could have some of the less risky items like the stable value or money market funds, or it could have some of the other items that are more risky in D, E, F, and G, like an equity fund, which is really investing in the equity of a company, for example, regular stocks. Specialty funds, those could be things that have assets that could consist of real estate or hybrid securities. Oftentimes those things have higher returns, but they also might have a different liquidity. So to get those returns, so you may not be able to liquidate those in order to get the money that you need for a project very quickly, but the benefit of having invested in it is to have higher returns. Self-directed brokerage accounts, that's pretty much what it says there. It's just it's really taking a brokerage account and having you direct it, as opposed to having an investment advisor or an investment manager. Company stock or other individual securities, again, those are things that you could have invested in an equity fund, which means that it's being managed by somebody else. But if you're actually making direct investments in company stock or individual securities, that also means that you're responsible for getting in and getting out of those positions. So that, again, that makes it important to know what your policies are and your positions about when to liquidate and when to purchase. Monitoring and control procedures, how often should the investment committee meet? That could be very important, as depending on whether or not you, the trustees or the people who hired an investment advisor want to continuously meet with that investment advisor. For as far as we're concerned here, it's almost as if we're not really meeting very frequently with, we're the library board of trustees as the investment committee, and we don't really meet that often with the city treasurer, because the city treasurer submits reports to the city about the investments that they make, and they're pretty liquid, and as well as not being very risky. What monitoring criteria will be used to monitor the investment manager? That's also a very important part of a document. And when will the funds be replaced if warranted? So just like the example I was saying before about making the decision to move out of an international fund into a domestic fund, when is that warranted? When does that become, how do you replace those funds? So those are things, again, that go back to number 3, where you might have, you go to the plan committee and decision. Is that communicated to an investment advisor? The investment managers and the custodian and the record keeper are all responsible for moving those assets. So I think the reason why I came up with this presentation was really to get us starting to think about, and you can take down the sharing the screen, I'm done with this, was really to just get us to start thinking about what it is that we really want to do going forward. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work because we don't have a policy. And probably if we did approach an investment advisor, they would want to see something of a policy. And even if we, and I would certainly recommend that we'd actually put something together, even just a bare bones kind of policy, because I think even an investment advisor would probably help in terms of making it a little bit sounder, or maybe even could actually help structure it too. But they still would want to know basic things about what kind of powers we have and what powers we want to give away to an investment advisor. So. And I think going forward too, you might want to have, somebody else come in and make future presentations. I don't know, I might, you might go to another municipality or have somebody who's local to actually come in and talk about the role of investment advisors or the role, more importantly, of the board of trustees in terms of managing money like this, so that you are further informed. Or there might even be an opportunity for the city or Genie or some other organization within the city to actually offer some kind of a training course to the members of the Board of Trustees to actually attend and learn more about fiduciary responsibility, as well as investment policies. So I would strongly recommend that you guys consider going and doing that going forward, because there's a lot more to this decision making than just saying, let's hire an outside advisor. And I think the purpose of this whole presentation was to get you thinking about what it is that we should be doing first before we get to that step. And that's all I got. Thanks for listening.
David, I think this is really amazing. I mean, you've got my brain going in all directions now. Thought I knew what I wanted, but now I have no idea. I don't have any background in finance at all, but I know that for me, even in our personal investments and our family, it's really important that we invest in companies that we believe are doing something good for the planet, right? So for an organization like the public library to take that time to really investigate or really think about how those monies are being invested and where, I think is really important. And it's important to me personally, but also I think as representatives of the library, right? And our city, that we need to think about those things, more, with more purpose, so that we have a bigger purpose than just making more money, but how are we making more money? So thank you, that was great. I really appreciate it. I mean, it was really informative.
I sitting here reflecting, I think that for me, having as being a part of an organization, the Rotary, the local Rotary group, we have our own independent foundation from the Rotary Foundation International, and it's a very serious task. We have a special group that manages that from our membership, and I've learned a lot from seeing them work. And as a result, they had a very good year because of really smart leadership within our membership, which leads me to think that, I think that this is a jumping off point for this group to have this discussion about what it hits home when you talk about what is our responsibility here and what do we think our responsibility should be for the trust fund, and starting there with that discussion and trying to establish a basic policy, I think is just fundamental from what I've learned from this. And I think that's our next steps, is that we should start looking at that and, ask ourselves, I'm kind of beyond the question of should we be a part of the city or not. I think that we have to first figure out what we want to do and how we want to, we're named as responsible for this money. So I think we have to decide, what does that responsibility mean in terms of I'm sorry, I'm looking for the word that was used here, which I bring home with the outlining the responsibility, the duties and responsibilities of the trustees. So I think that's, we've never really had that in-depth discussion. I think it's time for us to have that discussion as well. Thank you. So I think that our next steps this is something that's on our agenda for from now on. So I think that we probably should take what we have learned here from Trustee Kelly and start opening up the discussion on our next agenda, and identify either we as a group, or do we want to have a small group go off and work on some of these things and come back to us. The way I look at it, the trust fund is our responsibility. Right now, it's the one thing that we have, and there's no other activities going on. It's prime time to really focus on this. We don't have any other interference, no building committees, no other things that are happening that we can just really focus on getting this right. So do I have any other suggestions or any other ideas?
Yeah. I'm going to see if I can find some other nonprofits that have their investment policy statement, so that we can kind of get an idea what other people, how they're addressing this.
I can share the Rotary with you. If you'll send me a note, I'll put you in touch with the president of the Rotary Foundation. They can share theirs.
Okay, that would be great. If we can get a couple to look at.
Yeah.
Because I still don't know what our policy is on how we spend money out of the trust. I'm not sure how we say, oh, that would be a trust expenditure, or that would be a friends expenditure.
Good start.
We need to define that. The other thing that I'm thinking about, and this is down the line, this is not now, but how we break up certain money so that we are liquid. You know, how much of this fund do we want to be liquid, and how much do we want it to be long-term invested? And those are things that we can come up with later on. I tend to be fiscally conservative, but what we're invested in right now is a little bit too conservative for mine. I mean, this year was a year to make a lot of money, and our trust did not.
Well, I also think that we have an opportunity to engage our new city manager. As he mentioned in his introductory remarks, that he has a different exposure and different experience that we probably have never had access to as well. Now, I was a huge fan of Dr. Reddy, and I know that, he did a lot of great things, but we now have someone who's worked with various foundations, worked with libraries. So, he may have a different, unique view on this, or a different view. And I think engaging him as well, because I think that if the decision was to go on as an independent and take this money and put it somewhere outside the city, I want to make sure that at least someone is coming along with us, so that it's not this huge surprise when we knock on the door and say, would you mind writing us a check for $1.8 million? I think that, having them come along, because it is my experience with most of the people I've worked with in the city, they'll support it if they feel it's the right thing to do for the community. And I think that that's what we can, strive to uncover. Or is there a remote possibility now that we establish a policy, we go to the city and say, this is our policy, and they keep the money and adhere to our policy? I don't know if that's a possibility either. As it certainly could be. I mean, it might be a new day at the city with a new city manager. I don't know.
Do we know whether we can take our money out of the city?
Jeannie? I think Jeannie's had that conversation. Jeannie?
As of last week, you could, but this week's a new week. So I don't know.
Wow, that's safe.
Get that big checkbook out. Let's write a check. Let's see.
Like you said, I don't know. I
can
think that they would allow it.
I can see leaving money with the city, portion of the money with the city, so that they can handle the checks that go out and other things like that. And then taking another portion of that money and investing in it so we can get a better return.
That would be an option. But I mean, I think that we've got the research, we've got the history to go and show that the money was originally managed by an independent group, the Board of Trustees, and was given to the city at some point for good reasons. And now the reason may not be so good. We need to do other things. I mean, I think that's the conversation. There could be a little bit of a fight, maybe. They might say, are you really sure? Because when you do, you're taking this at risk. But then again, I don't know, Jeannie. I mean, you've had some initial conversations through the years, I'm sure, about this, right? I mean.
And so what I know about historically, even in the last 20 years, was that sometimes the trustees were more involved in the investments that were made with the trust fund under the city's umbrella. So they meet with the finance department and did set investment policies or certain investments, and they might have said, we want to invest in X, and then the city would do that. That hasn't happened, at least as long as I've been here. So I've been here 8.5 years, and has never been the case since I've been here. So at least, in the last 8.5 years, the city has just managed the money, within their own portfolio, which you have access to see
Right.
in their monthly reports. So yeah, it's been both ways, like you said.
I think that the education that we've started on this journey of educating ourselves around this is the first step. Before you even have a conversation with the city, I think if we come to them in a much more educated, different position of, we're working hard to understand the responsibility, and here's what we're committed to. I think that's a much better start conversation with them. I have no idea what those conversations in the past could have been. It could have been, oh, we're mad at you, we want our money back. But it could, I think if there was justifiable reason tied to goals that the city would agree. I mean, we all know that, someday we want a new library. I mean, is that a common denominator, that we feel that we can do a better job in preparing for that endeavor, especially in light of, I don't think there's another city department that has two other fundraising arms in addition to us that's all about raising money for the library. There's a lot of money that is raised for the library. And I think that that's another aspect that I'm sure they recognize, right? I mean,
I think it would be a great idea if you guys, and I'm saying you guys because I'm new.
Yeah, I just caught that.
So I just don't want to be cagey about that. But I think going forward, what should happen is maybe a conversation with the foundation and the trustees, maybe to actually consider engaging a financial advisor or somebody who has some experience with writing investment policies to give a presentation to all three organizations. I think all of the organizations that are raising money for the library should actually be listening to somebody actually make this pitch. From my experience in listening to what's been going on at the Friends, they don't do a very sophisticated way, and I would doubt that they have an investment policy either. So I think having somebody to tell folks about the fiduciary responsibilities of members of boards towards their financial assets, I think would be something that all three organizations could invest in and benefit from hearing.
and if you guys remember, we had said that we wanted a joint meeting of the foundation, the Friends, and this group pretty soon to talk about these kinds of topics and about goals and objectives. So I think that fits very nicely into that kind of a conversation. The question is, when can we do that? Didn't we mention May, Jeannie, that we would look at that, or was it June? I can't remember.
That's a question. And then the other issue is now we're losing Trustee Kelly, and we'll have a new trustee. I don't remember what we said.
Well, this will also allow us to define who's responsible financially for what.
That's exactly right.
I think
time.
And so, and I like David's idea and your idea of having all three organizations sit down, hire somebody to come in and do the policy with us. Sorry. And then we can sit down and each write our separate three policies, but also see how they connect.
Absolutely. I like that idea a lot.
Ed, I feel like maybe that was discussed at the foundation level and not at this meeting,
Okay.
or not with this group. Does that sound right?
It might be. So if I can channel that again, I think that in light of the recent bequest to the foundation, we have foundation board members asking the same kind of question. Okay, so what are we, especially if we're going to go out and raise money with the donor list that they're creating and those tools, I think they want some clarity, because there was a meeting between the Friends and the foundation, right? And it kind of became evident that we need some clarification for everybody. And I think then the discussion was, do we want to have all of us as trustees participate? And if we do, that means it's an open meeting, which it's fine. Or do we want to have representatives from each group come together and keep it as an exploratory meeting? So
I would definitely recommend everybody. I think everybody here has a fiduciary responsibility, and you know, if it has to be an open meeting, I think probably it would make. I would probably put it into the context of a training meeting, because about 2 years ago, when or like I think periodically when, you know, before COVID, we used to be able to have training meetings for city officials like ourselves in the Palm Springs Convention Center. So there would be an attorney who would tell us everything we needed to know about the Brown Act, for example. This is probably something of that nature where, you know, if we found somebody to, you know, the 3 organizations hired somebody to talk to us about investment policy statements and made it a training session and invited all of these people, then I don't know whether or not that's not really a public meeting. But I do think that the other part of the issue about the, you know, having the 3 organizations meet together, that might actually be more of, you know, getting representatives from each of the organizations, at least initially, just to kind of set up what it would be. And then maybe at some point open it up to the public. I think the public would be kind of interested in something like that. So,
well, I mean, we've heard the city say this is public money. I mean, it came from members of the public through the history, so we know that. So I think that's going to be the stand the city will look at it and say, we're talking about public money. And I think you're going to have discussions in the public and see what they want. How they want, you know, to move forward.
But again, like your point before, this is a perfect time to do it, because really we're not in a situation where we have to worry about any other big issues. And this is one that's been kind of lingering for a while. So,
and I've always said we have the luxury that each organization has money, you know, so we're in a wonderful position. There's so many communities that aren't that lucky. So I think it's even more important that how can we take that and grow, make more money, you know, and really achieve some of the goals that we have for the library, or Jeannie has for the library. So great discussion, everyone, but the clock is ticking. So can we move on to the next? And on the agenda for our next agenda, let's put on here our initial discussion about how we want to move forward with drafting an investment policy and starting to define the roles and responsibilities of the trustees when it comes to that policy. I'll reach out to the president of the foundation and the president of the Friends and see what they think about a joint meeting, if you guys are okay with that, and start working on that happening as well. So, all right, getting back to our agenda. Policy in front of us, everyone. It's the policy. Meeting, excuse me, for May.
Yeah.
So what's the situation, Jeannie?
So we were advised by the city clerk's office that May the 5th is Cinco de Mayo, and we might want to consider changing the meeting date. And that's something for you to decide.
The pleasure of this group. Do we want to change it? Do we want to move a day or two or into a week?
I would be open to whatever I am. It doesn't matter to me. The 5th is fine. And if you want to change it, we can change it.
Okay. Well, let's change in the meeting. Trustee Kelly help you, but you don't know right now, do you? You don't know what your schedule is going to be like?
you know, it's really funny because the first day of classes, or the first day of the term, is May the 5th. I mean, USC is a California school, so it's like, if that's a state holiday, why are we starting on Cinco de Mayo?
Good question.
That's a private school. Okay, well, maybe.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad though.
So it's only a have a margarita holiday. It has
True.
nothing to do with anything.
We could all have margaritas that day and still meet on the 5th, right? That make that meeting go really well.
There you go.
Is the city requesting that we change the meeting, Jeannie?
They close?
They sent out a list of holidays that are upcoming, or celebrations, and they just said these are ones to consider and look at.
But the city isn't closed that day, right? In terms of the offices, right? They're still open.
No, it's not an official holiday.
An observance.
Right.
Do we feel that we would offend someone if we met on the 5th and and someone in our community would it? I don't know.
I don't know why anyone would be offended. I mean, it truly is a made-up holiday. It's not, there's no significance to it other than a battle in Puebla, Mexico that the Mexicans don't even celebrate. So I don't know why, other than interrupting margarita time.
Okay, can everyone hold off to have margaritas till after this meeting then? Or do we have margaritas with this meeting, I guess?
That's a
It's gonna be kind of hard to do. Okay, let's just take a real quick vote if you'd like for us to keep the meeting on the 5th or would you like for us to change it and give, we want to change it by a day or a week. So can we take a roll call real quick?
I'm sure, Craig.
I have to go first.
Don't have to.
I'm just thinking what our other options are. Do we need to have the meeting?
Or we could go dark in May. That's correct.
Will you have met with the other two organizations regarding setting up a joint meeting by that time?
Well, it's still early in the month. I sure will try. I mean, I can have it done by then if you guys want me to.
Okay, I'm good with the 12th.
Okay, I'm writing this down, or well,
Yeah.
we're recording anyway. We can review the video.
I got it.
Juanita Garner,
I'm fine with the 12th.
are you fine with the?
Either one.
Okay.
12th of the 5th.
David Kelly.
Well, right now I have no objection to either date.
Okay. And
I have no objection, so let's keep it on the 5th.
Okay. And we don't know about Melissa, right? Is she just out for this meeting or is she going to be out for a while?
She's out for this meeting.
no, just she had a work issue that came up. So it wasn't.
All right, so May 5th.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now we have a policy before us, the mobile hotspot lending policy.
Okay. We drafted this policy. We copied some other libraries and went with the Public Library Association's recommendations on a policy. We need a policy so that we can enforce it. And I bring this before you. We will do there are some minor tweaks that we need to do. Instead of the word hotspot, we need to call it a hotspot kit. So if you're okay with entrusting us to fix those minor issues, I would request that you just approve this.
I have a question, Jeannie. You've already answered one of them, so you're on a roll. Is there anything unique about this particular policy as compared to our other collections or other policies that we have? Will you be introducing something we've never had before, or is it loosely or very much based on our current policy and the way we lend items?
That's an excellent question. The mobile hotspot kits are a completely new product for us to circulate, but we plan to circulate it similarly to any other library items. We're going to circulate it for 2 weeks, just like our other items. The customers have exactly the same amount of time to pick up their hold. So that's the same. They need to return their items. We are fine free, but if you do not return the item, there is one difference. But if you return the items now and they are overdue more than 30 days, we charge you the price of the item. However, then if you bring it back, then we waive that fee. So this policy, we set the overdue lost time at 14 days because these are $80 devices and we expect them to be in extremely high demand, and we don't want someone to take off with the device, honestly, and not bring it back. We have the ability to turn these off immediately if they're not returned on time. So it's it's worthless to someone to keep it. So everything else is very similar to our other policies.
Well, the
Check
reason
it
I
out, bring it back.
The reason I ask is I can remember as both the library administrator and library user, when you have multiple policies that have different dates and different loan periods, and it just gets confusing because, parents can't keep up with it. I take books and I take a hotspot. One's due in 21 days, one's due in 14. Oh my gosh, that's just one more task. Why do I want these? That's really why I'm asking is I like consistency, in the plot. So are you saying that these are 14 days? What's everything else? Like books?
14. Yeah, we
I thought so.
circulate everything for
I thought
2
so.
weeks. When I got here, we had a DVD policy that was 7 days and it was $1 a day overdue instead of a
Shoot me.
quarter. And
But that means it's consistent. So I like that.
What's the value of these items?
they're $80 each.
Okay.
And you haven't implemented this yet, have you?
No, we're ready to roll. We've got them. We're ready to start this as soon as we get a policy.
Okay, so I have this really arcane question that goes to page 16 of our packet. Where it says in section 2, resolution 17/2288, item number C, the library board shall establish, amend, and periodically review all library fines, fees, and charges, and ensure such charges are incorporated into the city's master fee schedule. So I get my first time to ask, what is the city's master fee schedule, and does this apply?
The master fee schedule is, it's a public document, and we do have our fees rolled into that. When we did, we haven't changed our fees in a while. We do bring those to the trustees, I think. It's been a while, but you do approve all the policies and the fees. The city, the one thing about the city's fees though is that they set price increases based on the consumer index, and they haven't done increase in this year. They haven't because of COVID and whatnot. So
how does this fee get implemented as far as the city's master fee schedule? Is there somebody else that you're gonna, once you decide to update this policy statement to fit how you feel does Palm Springs Public Library would use such a form? Is there somebody else like in the city's clerk office that needs to review this and then put it into the master fee schedule?
yes, in the clerk's office we do. They send us the chart and we make sure that it's accurate. And so yes, the finance department manages the fee chart, the fee structure.
So I just want to make sure all of that gets implemented correctly. The funny thing is that I don't know what this whole thing looks like, but I imagine some changes were made when the decision was made to abandon all fees for the public library, that we were not going to collect fees any longer from people, and instead, if they just were delinquent, then at some point we would just suspend their privileges. So
right, there is a procedure, a policy in here that says that if the item is lost for long overdue, that they do get charged the cost of the item. And so that cost isn't a set dollar amount because each item is worth something different. So this is just considered like another item in the library, and it just happens to cost $80 to replace it.
Right,
so
right.
We do have items that cost more than that here. DVD, TV series, or some extensive reference books, but so technically there's not any change to the fee schedule based on adding this new item.
Okay, so that brings another question then. If in fact, another year or two down the line that these little devices cost more than $80, do you need to amend that? Or is there a way of writing the language so that you just include that it just it's just the cost of it without having to put in that $80 figure in there.
Yeah, there's nothing that we would have to do because we would just have a new physical item and its value is attached to its item record in our computer. So that would just adapt. So nothing to change on that aspect.
So once we approve this, the resolution that's attached, much like any resolution when you eliminated fees and fines, you forward over to the city clerk and it becomes an item on the council agenda. Usually it's on the consent calendar, or do you have to discuss it? It's really just on the consent calendar, right?
No, it doesn't even, this doesn't even go to city council.
Okay.
This is just a resolution of your organization. And it's a way for us to better track policy changes. And this is your first resolution of the year.
I'll move for approval with the idea that you keep us updated on this policy.
Do we have a second?
I'd like to amend that, a friendly amendment, to say that not just to keep us appraised, but also to provide us with the final copy of the document.
I'll go with that.
Definitely. And it will be translated into Spanish too.
Sorry, you broke up on that one.
I was saying that we will translate it into Spanish once it's finalized.
And it will be part of our minutes, right? So it will be held there in archive, okay? All right, do I have a second?
You had a second.
Oh, I did. You did, I'm sorry. Let's do a roll call then.
Borba,
Yes.
Juanita Garner,
Yes.
David Kelly,
Yes.
Ed McBride.
Yes.
4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now you're gonna talk about giving us money, I think next, right? You got
I just
some money?
wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge that we received 2 donations. In your packet, you have copies of the thank you letters. We received a $100 donation from Alpha Delta Kappa. They're consistent donors every year. Very grateful to that organization. And then we received a donation of $50 from Ann Rogers Rhyme and Richard Rhyme. So we want to say thank you to them as well. You don't know it yet, but I have a check here for $150 I got today from a library patron. So
Good.
I'll tell you about that next time.
All this money's going into the trust?
These do. These are donations specifically. They're made payable to the Palm Springs Public Library, and that ends up in your trust fund in the future library projects account.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did you try again? Just talking to me.
So next item, trustee staff comments, future agenda items. Do we have anything?
Just a question, Dave, don't mean to put you on the spot, but we had talked earlier about you're talking to Melissa regarding being interested in being the treasurer.
We just never talked. So I think that conversation needs to start up again. So, and it doesn't necessarily need to be Melissa, it could be you, it could be Juanita. There are other people here who haven't served. And a matter of fact, when I came on to the board, I was elected treasurer. So I don't know who you may be considering, but you might find somebody who might be worthy of being a treasurer right from day one. So you might want to wait till then.
Okay. We'll take that under advisement. Jeannie, I know you, do you have any idea on how they're doing with replacing members of boards and commissions? Have you heard?
Well, you know what I discovered was that they are making them public meetings and putting them on YouTube, the interviews. But I didn't see that they interviewed anybody for the library board of trustees, but I did see others. And at the council meeting tomorrow night, they are going to appoint several people. So I'm hopeful that they'll get the library board of trustees in a future group, but it's public. It's something new. I've never seen that before.
So do we need to do any, or do you need to do anything, or have you submitted the paperwork already to let them know that?
They know, they're completely aware of it. There's a public posting with all of the vacancies, and so they're aware, but I can follow up and just send an email and check on that.
I don't know, Ed, as president, haven't you been involved with all those interviews in the past? I mean, are they writing you out of this situation now?
So interesting enough, the first round that we had when I was president, I was up for my renewal, so they didn't include me. I want to say it was, I can't remember now who it was, but no, because I was in that group, they didn't, of course, include me to review them. And then last time, yes, I was part of it. So, and so my terms, my 2 terms as president, I've only been involved in one. I don't know if they still do that or not, right, Jeannie? Are they going to have them be a part of it? So they're part of the committee?
I saw on the video, go to YouTube, it's on there. You can see that they've got a couple of commissioners at each one, and the full council, I believe.
Wow. Is the interview committee?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
No pressure, no pressure.
Well, I won't be up again, so that's the rest of you guys. Okay, that's interesting. Any other future agenda items or anything to discuss?
So just to reiterate, our next meeting will be on May 5th.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be there with my margarita. Yeah. Okay.
It'll be 5:30 somewhere.
Well, here for our meeting, right? I mean, it'll be 5:30 for us. I may have another half who's going to be kind of upset that I'm not out drinking, but that's okay. All right, everyone. Great meeting. Lots of good information. Trustee Kelly, I hope you can join us for the next 2 meetings.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, please let us know, and good luck. So let's adjourn this meeting of the Palm Springs Public Library Board of Trustees at 7:22 p.m. Thank you all very much for your service. I appreciate it.
Thank you.